One of the more popular and amusing medical TED Talks is called "What Veterinarians Know That Physicians Don't." It tells the story of a cardiologist's surprise upon learning how much veterinary medicine has advanced research in areas relevant to human medicine. 8 years before that cardiologist took the TED stage, Peter Doherty walked onto a stage to accept the Nobel Prize for research integrating veterinary and human medicine. Dr. Doherty's speech, also available online, describes that research, but begins by contextualizing his work in an historical discussion of science, medicine, research, viral infection, and the ability of scientists to confront the greatest threats to life. Good science is essential and requires extraordinary focus and commitment, but great science comes from those who understand the power of looking at the world and asking their own questions. As a beloved figure in the intellectual world, Dr. Peter C. Doherty could have retired knowing he has advanced human knowledge more than most scientists in history. Instead, he turned his attention to a new virus, the challenge to evidence-based approaches to addressing global challenges. The University of Calgary's motto invites us to lift up our eyes. By lifting up his eyes, Dr. Peter C. Doherty sees the whole world. As a result, his work has and continues to make the world a better place for all living creatures. Eminent Chancellor, I present to you Nobel laureate Dr. Peter C. Doherty, whose work in veterinary and human medicine saved countless lives, advanced human knowledge, and inspired young people around the world to take up the study of medicine on their own terms. His list of accomplishments is astonishing in breadth and depth, but also in its diversity. Awards in veterinary, human, and research medicine, pure and applied science, show him to be an expansive thinker. Awards in education, literature, and history remind us of the roots of integrative approaches to research. His way of working in science, medicine, and research shows us the beauty of an evidence-based life, fueled by an unrestrained dedication to the power of scientific inquiry. On behalf of the Senate and the University of Calgary, I invite you to invest him with the degree Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
I admit you, Peter Charles Doherty, to the degree Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, and grant you all the rights and privileges, powers and responsibilities pertaining to this degree. Congratulations.
Well, thanks for this great distinction. It's always risky asking aging Nobel Prize winners to talk because we never know when to shut up. I sat where you're sitting now more than 50 years ago, but I do remember one of my professors in the vet school posing the question, would you rather be vetted or doctored? Canadians and Australians have a certain common heritage. We both, the British colonial thing, you know, but I'd always thought of Canadians as a generally better class of people. I've worked with them a lot over the years. They're fairer, more decent, quiet sort of people. And at least that's what I thought until I happened to have the opportunity, I better watch my time actually, of being in Ottawa and sitting up in the gallery of your wonderful parliament at question time. And I can tell you, I've never seen a more undisciplined group of ruffians in my whole life. And our question time in Australia is really appalling. I mean, the lies and the abuse that flows back and forth. The difference is the speaker throws them out if they get too bad. Your speaker doesn't. I suspect it's to do with allowing your minor parties to vent a bit. But I mentioned this to a friend, and she said, but you've never been to an ice hockey game. Ah, right. And then I remembered, one of the true delights, and sitting on a Canadian committee, I sat on the Gairdner committee in Toronto for a number of years. I may not get to my talk, actually, is first hearing the term, "but he has good puck sense." I've never dared to introduce that into an Australian committee. I mean, I'm not sure what Australians would make of it. So the first thing to say at a graduation is congratulations. Congratulations to all you guys. I mean, you're all graduating, I think, into professional degrees of one sort or another. For some of you, you will have sat through other commencement addresses, and now you have to endure yet another one. I'd also like to congratulate the families and friends and significant others who supported you through all this. In some senses, they're the true heroes. Commencement addresses are probably one of the most totally forgettable forms of public speaking. The one I always loved growing up as I did in the town of Brisbane, which is, because of its sunny location and the fact it's full of Irish, is the melanoma capital of the world. But the commencement address that always spoke to me directly was one that was attributed to the American novelist Kurt Vonnegut Jr. And the whole theme of the address, which was supposedly given to MIT students, was use sunscreen. I thought that was extremely good advice, and looking at your rather extensive, shall we call them fields, I think it's good advice for Calgary too. The only problem is he never gave the address. It was just a spook. It was fake news. Didn't happen. My personal experience of being totally upstaged in a commencement address was at the Michigan State University, where I stood up and gave the usual pomposities, but I was getting an honorary degree at the same time as a wonderful woman, the novelist, poet, and singer, Black American activist Maya Angelou. Maya's no longer with us, but she was just a terrific human being. So I talked, but when Maya got up, she sang. Now I won't sing, but it was totally unforgettable. The world, of course, when I graduated from university was a very different place. There were only half as many people on the planet, and those people that were there lived much more modest lifestyles. Our levels of consumption have gone up enormously, and so at the same stage have our levels of depletion of resources and all the rest of it. We have economists that tell us we must aspire to never-ending growth. As a biomedical scientist, there's only one thing I think of when you talk about never-ending growth. It's called cancer. Cancers are very successful. They take you over, they use all your nutrition, they grow enormously, then they kill you. And in so doing, of course, they kill themselves. And there's a sort of a lesson there for a few CEOs and international guys. And so, anyway, it's an extraordinary time, actually. You could echo Charles Dickens in A Tale of Two Cities and say it's the best of times and the worst of times. We've seen extraordinary advances in the physical sciences and their application, communication, and all the rest of it, which, like every opportunity, has created many, many challenges. In my own field of medical science, wonderful advances. It really has been a tremendous. People no longer die of heart attacks at the age of 45. We're getting a lot of cancers on the run, tremendous new treatments, some using the sort of science that I was involved in earlier on. And so it goes on. Really fantastic. If you're in biomedical science and you're just graduating from medical school or with your PhD, don't think for a moment all the problems are solved. There's still an enormous amount of mileage in this. Another 50 years, I think, before we really work through a lot of the potential that we have out there. And things are happening very fast at the moment. Molecular science in general has immense application that still to be exploited in many ways. Micronutrient deficiency, calorie deficiency, drought resistance, and so forth. there are molecular solutions to those problems, though we have to persuade people in some countries to accept the technologies that go with them. We're also getting into all sorts of issues with water depletion. As you know, the Green Revolution, which began many, many decades ago, succeeded in solving the issue that the Club of Rome had identified of there being massive hunger and all the rest of it. But what happened along with that is it came at a cost. We've depleted a lot of the aquifers in places like the Punjab. You know, the same thing's been happening in California. Water qualities are issues and all the rest of it. So there are really major issues that need to be addressed, and a lot of those are going to fall on you guys because people like us are coming to the end of our era. There are really some wicked problems that we or the world or whatever it is has left you. Plastics everywhere, seabird numbers are down by half across the planet, water depletion, climate change, acid oceans, and of course we've seen all that play out recently in the damage that's being done to our major tropical reefs, including our wonderful Great Barrier Reef. Now, there are no certainties about where this is going. All we know is that it's going to continue, and it's going to continue to ramp up. So we need an enormous amount of skill and science and innovation and engineering out there to tackle these problems. It's not just, though, in the actual applications of science and the sort of things that I'm accustomed to. It's also, we need innovation in policy settings, in economic models, and we need politicians who will step up to the plate and actually lead. We need legal input. What really got the tobacco industry on the run was the big class action suits that happened in the United States. Things are happening. The Parliament of Wales, for instance, passed an act that requires that all legislation and all action, in fact, consider the well-being of future generations. It's called the Well-being of Future Generations Act. We need that sort of thinking across the planet. What really needs to happen in human society, because we're faced with challenges we've never really faced before, is that we need to change the way we approach issues, and we need to change some of the things that we value, and value the things that are really so irreplaceable in our natural world and our environment. The other initiative is some parliaments have appointed an ombudsman for the future, which I think we could all think of ourselves in that way, as speaking up for what will work in the long term, what is sustainable, what's going to sustain life, what's going to provide high-quality lives for people on Earth. For the medical graduates, I don't need to mention the idea of duty of care, but that's the type of thinking I think that we all need to incorporate in the way we approach issues. Our duty of care to the community, to broader society, and to seeing that we have viable and prosperous futures for everyone. You've been trained to think in terms of evidence. That's what a university is about. And it's not, though, necessarily the way that everybody approaches the world. So one of the things you need to think about in your professional life is being an ambassador for an evidence-based view. You can speak out. Many of you will be prominent figures in the community because of the training and the positions that you will hold. You can speak out for that approach. Do it gently, don't tell people, show people, but speak out for an evidence-based view. Also, I always have in mind the statement by, we attribute to René Dubos, the microbiologist at the Rockefeller University, think globally, act locally. I could also quote Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who said, do a little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good that together can overwhelm the world. And I think that's very, very true. First of all, though, apart from being a communicator, what's required of you, graduating from this great university, is that you be a good professional, that you do your job, you know your stuff, and you really do it well. And there's nothing better that you can do for society than that. I would wish you all a terrific career, a great life, and never doubt that in thinking of the greater good, each and every one of us can make a difference. Thank you.